Hey y'all, Tanny Cooks here, and today I'm going to show you how to make an absolutely fabulous meatloaf recipe. Now, this isn't going to be your usual meatloaf, and I'm going to show you why with my special tips and tricks, so you're going to want to watch the whole video. We're also going to make some yummy mashed potatoes and some fried corn. So, let's get to cooking.
We're going to start with a few basic ingredients, starting with our ground beef. This is 93% lean, 7% fat. You'll notice the details of this beef that I bought from my local grocer. I have 2.31 pounds and it was $6.99 a pound. I also have 1 pound of turkey sausage. So this isn't regular ground turkey, it's turkey sausage. I have 2 eggs. I have Sweet Baby Ray's barbecue sauce, and I have this powdered ranch seasoning. That's a key factor. Breadcrumbs and some whole corn, no salt added, and my potatoes for my mashed potatoes. So I'm going to start off with washing my bell pepper. I'm using white vinegar. I find that using white vinegar and some baking soda with water is a great way to get any waxy coating off the grocery stores may put on it. I have no idea if it will help get any pesticides off. Some pesticides probably release into the actual vegetable, but I'm just doing the best that I can, and I'm not trying to be perfect with it. But you should buy organic vegetables as much as your budget allows. I do buy some organic, but some stuff I buy isn't organic. So even with my gold potatoes, I'm using water with white vinegar and the baking soda to help clean them. And I love using my veggie brush to scrub my potatoes because of course they grow in dirt, so I scrub the dirt off and then rinse them off. So now on a cutting board, I'm cutting my bell pepper, and I'm using a small sliver here, but I decided ultimately to use half a bell pepper and half an onion, so you can use the amount that works for you. Ultimately, I used about 2 tablespoons of my green bell pepper and onion mixture in my meatloaf, but that's according to your personal preference. So just slice your bell pepper and slice up your onion. And some people will actually saute their vegetables. Some people may use their vegetables raw in their meatloaf. I'm going to show you what I'm going to do, but choose what you want to do for yourself. There are so many different ways to cook any one recipe. And so what I always show you is what my preference is this particular day. I try different things on different days. So if this isn't what you like, just keep watching and don't freak out about it, because it's okay if you choose to do something differently. So here I'm just getting more onion, because even if I don't use all of this chopped onion and bell pepper in this particular recipe, I will use it within the next couple of days because I love using these basic vegetables throughout my different cooking recipes. This is my mini food processor from KitchenAid. It's so easy. It's more of a food processor, but if you have a big food processor, you can certainly use it. I just didn't here because I have such little amount of vegetables that it would get kind of annoying to not have it reach the blade. So this mini processor is great when you're just processing a small amount of vegetables. So I just press the handle down and it pulses it. And I did that a couple of times to get it chopped to my satisfaction. Quick and easy. So I put my 2.3 pounds of ground beef into a big bowl, and then I added my 1 pound of breakfast turkey sausage. So ground turkey is not going to have the same fat content as turkey sausage, so look for this specifically. Now you can see all of the bell pepper and onion that I have. I just added about 2 tablespoons, and I had some left over that I kept in a sealed container to use for another recipe. I always crack my eggs in a separate bowl than my main ingredient bowl. I've never had a bad egg, but I do this mainly in case I get some of the shell in it. It's easier to fish it out of a small bowl than the big bowl with the other ingredients. Now I'm adding some breadcrumbs. 1 cup. I have a little over 3 pounds of meat, so I'm using 1 cup of breadcrumbs. I'm adding seasonings, including garlic powder, onion powder, and black pepper. Now I'm not adding salt because I am adding this powdered ranch seasoning. It's so delicious to make regular salad dressing. You can see it contains some sodium, so I don't need to add salt. And you can use this salad dressing to marinate, bake, season, stir, sprinkle, garnish with. Lots of different options. It is a processed food, but it tastes good, so I'm adding it here. Now I'm adding 1 tablespoon per pound of meat. So I did about 3.5 tablespoons because I have a little over 3 pounds of meat. And you can see I'm adding about a tablespoon of barbecue sauce. I'm not using ketchup because I'm not a huge fan of ketchup. I like the depth and richness of barbecue sauce, which of course contains ketchup and some seasonings. But what I'm doing now is just mixing everything over, and you want to be careful that you don't over mix your meat. You don't want it to get too tough when you cook it, but you do have to make sure everything is incorporated well. So it's a fine balance. So do your best and just trust that it turned out well when you cook it. So that's what I'm doing here. Now I am mixing my meat together as I place it into my 13x9 glass baking dish. I'm not using a loaf pan. You can cook it in a loaf pan if you want to and make it come up perfect. I'm a soul food cook, so I'm not striving for perfection. I just want it to look basically good, but taste very delicious, and that's what you have here. A very beautifully formed meatloaf. You can see the meat and the seasonings. You can see the color difference between my turkey and my ground beef. Again, as a soul food cook, I don't care about that because we're going to cover it up with a half a cup of barbecue sauce. Now, because I'm using this barbecue sauce, as I cook the meat from the beginning, I am going to cover it with foil when I put it in the oven. So I'm just rubbing in the barbecue sauce so that flavor can cook in just a little bit. And look at that, y'all. So beautiful. And I like the height and the width of this meatloaf. It's going to be very delicious on my dinner plate. And use a barbecue sauce of your choice. So this is the aluminum foil that I'm going to use. I'm just going to cover on top. So I'm going to put this in the oven at 350 degrees for a total of about 60 minutes. But halfway through, we're going to measure the temp to see how it's coming along. So while that's in the oven, I boiled my potatoes and they are ready for me to take out and cook for my mashed potatoes. You can see they're very fork tender. So I have the water running in the back of my colander in my sink. So when I pour in the hot water from my potatoes, it won't mess up any PVC pipes I may have. So it's cool water going down with the hot water. So while the potatoes are getting cool because they're super hot, I have a fry pan on the stove with some butter that's melting so that I can fry my corn. Now, I thought I bought 2 cans of no salt whole kernel corn, but one of the cans was cream corn, and that's not what I want. So I just put I drank the corn first, and then I put my hand over my butter just to make sure it was hot enough, and then I added my corn. And the whiteness you see with my corn, that's just the milk solids in the butter, so that's okay. I added a little bit of liquid smoke to season my corn, and then I'm giving it a stir. And actually, if you're watching this before you make your meatloaf, you may want to add a little bit of liquid smoke in your meatloaf. That could be delicious with the barbecue sauce. So as I season my corn, I'm adding some black pepper. I didn't add salt because I use salted butter. And you're going to have to let this fry for a couple of minutes because some of the liquid, we drained out most of it, but some is still in the corn. It has to cook out, and then you'll notice the corn will start to fry and darken, and that's what we want to see. So now that that is going, I'm getting my potatoes peeled. And I know it looks like I'm jumping from dish to dish, but this is how I cook in my kitchen. As one thing is cooking and going, I start on the next item so that, the dinner can come together quicker. So I'm peeling my hot potatoes. So you just want to peel them, dice them up in big chunks, and set them to the side. So now I'm going to check my temperature of my meatloaf before I actually start my mashed potatoes. And you can see it looks like it's cooking, but it's kind of like skinned, and that's okay. I have a meat thermometer, and so what I want to do is see what the current temp is. So the thing is, when you cook from a recipe, don't try to cook by time. So 30 minutes, it was only at 110 degrees. We want to cook till this is at a temperature that is safe for us to eat internally. So I'm adding another half a cup of barbecue sauce on top, and then I'm smoothing that on, and then I'm going to cook this in the oven for about another half hour until it comes up to a safe temp of 165, 170, because remember, we have that turkey sausage in there. So the main thing in recipes is use the temperature as a overall recommendation, but you want to actually cook your meat until it's at a safe temp for you to eat. So my meatloaf is in the oven now, and now I'm ready to put my peeled potatoes in a pan with hot butter. This is the same pan I used to boil the potatoes. This is a potato ricer that I've used to make mashed potatoes and other videos. It's very delicious to cook it with a ricer, but today I decided I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to use my big masher and I'm going to mash it in the pan. So I'm going to have some chunky potatoes. Maybe it's not best to mash it in the pan, but I don't really think it's going to damage my pan. So now I'm adding some sour cream. I'm not measuring it exactly. I have about 2 or 3 tablespoons. Now I'm adding some black pepper. These potatoes absorb water, of course, as it's cooking, so it could take a lot of seasoning. So I'm adding a good amount of black pepper and a little less amount of salt because I can add salt later when I'm ready to taste it. I'm adding about 2 tablespoons of minced garlic and then giving it another mash to incorporate all of the ingredients together. I like chunky mashed potatoes. Some people may like theirs much more creamy like you get with instant mashed potatoes, and that's your choice. I'm adding some heavy cream here, about 3 or 4 tablespoons, and then giving it a mix. You'll notice I add my seasoning ingredients a little at a time so that I can see the consistency as I mix it. Now with potatoes, you don't want to over mash or over mix it because you don't want it to become gummy. So it's a matter of you doing this a couple of times to see your preference. So now I'm adding a couple of more tablespoons of heavy cream and giving it a stir with my wooden spoon. And all of this is on a very low heat so nothing burns. It's a lot of dairy. I added a couple of more tablespoons of sour cream and some heavy cream. And look, it looks very liquidy, but you'll notice in just a few seconds as I continue to stir it, the potatoes is going to absorb all of that delicious flavoring from the sour cream and the heavy cream. So even though it looks very chunky, I know it's very creamy and delicious. And look at that, y'all. These are hearty home-style mashed potatoes. I added about 4 ounces of shredded cheddar cheese and a few stalks of chopped green onion. Now, if you wanted to cook some bacon and crumble up 2 or 3 pieces, that would be absolutely delicious for these loaded potatoes. So at this point, I took my meatloaf out the oven and look at that, y'all. Big, juicy, home-style meatloaf. So now what I'm going to do to ensure the food safety is measure the internal temperature with my meat thermometer. And you can see the temp is going up quickly. I need to cook my turkey sausage in this at least to 165. So let it sit or rest for a couple of minutes before you measure the temperature. And then whatever temperature you get at that point, just know it's going to raise up a few degrees as it sits for a couple of more minutes. That's just a given with any meat you take out of the oven. So it hit the 165 mark. I'm very happy with that. So I transferred it to a plastic baking mat and I cut my first slice. And y'all, look at how delicious it is. Looking, you can see the bell pepper and the onion. Now, you can cut your meatloaf thin if you like. You can cut it thicker. Me, I'm kind of into meatloaf sandwiches, so I cut it thick enough to be like a nice juicy burger when I put it on a bun. But again, that's up to your personal choice and how many servings you want to get from this one loaf. That's about 3.31 pounds of meat. And look at the beautiful barbecue sauce. It didn't over brown because remember we started off for the first half a time in the oven with aluminum foil on top. To jazz it up and make it look a little more fancy, I cut off several slices and put it on a pristine white plate with some parsley on top. So beautiful, and trust me, it tastes so delicious. So here I have my fried corn, my loaded mashed potatoes, and my delicious meatloaf. Y'all, this is it's a hearty home-style Southern dish. Let me know in the comments if you think that you might want to try my recipe, and if you do, let me know how it turns out for you. Thank you so much for watching this video. Please subscribe to my channel and watch my other delicious recipes.